Prime Minister has unveiled a big budget pitch this week, branded Future Made in Australia, in a bid to kickstart a homegrown clean energy manufacturing industry. The push to establish sovereign capabilities will target critical minerals, battery and solar projects, with assistance through tax credits and subsidies, similar to the US Inflation Reduction Act in aim, if not scale.
Obviously, Australia cannot go dollar for dollar with the United States Inflation Reduction Act. But this is not an auction, it's a competition. And Australia can absolutely compete.
The scheme will include the $1 billion Solar Sunshot program announced last month and the $15 billion National Reconstruction Fund. Similar policies are in place internationally, including the EU, Canada and Japan. The budget is still a month away, but already Anthony Albanese's Future Made in Australia Act is proving controversial. While he says it will redefine our path to net zero, critics warn it comes at a significant cost to taxpayers. I spoke to Kane Thornton from the Clean Energy Council. Kane, there are no numbers on this yet. What do you see being made here as a direct result of the Future Made in Australia Act?
Yeah, there's obviously enormous opportunity for Australia to make more of the components that we're going to need for renewable energy in the future. Look, that's everything from different parts of solar panels that are going on the roof of people's homes. We're seeing a global race to manufacture hydrogen electrolyzers, which is really the piece of equipment that turns water into hydrogen, for which there's enormous global demand. There's towers for wind turbines, there's electrical cable, there's batteries. There's an enormous demand both here in Australia and globally for these sorts of components, and we think and hope that this announcement from the Prime Minister will provide a leg up for Australian industry and manufacturers to really focus on some of those critical components or parts of, in partnership with other manufacturers either here or around the world.
Australia is an expensive place to make things. It's why manufacturing has continued to decline here. How much incentive do businesses need to get them across the line to make products here?
Well, obviously, a critical part of this program is going to be providing support for businesses to manufacture here in Australia. But we need to remember that we do have some of the, some extraordinarily smart researchers. We've got an advanced manufacturing industry. While some sectors, like the automotive sectors, phase down, we've got some other areas that we are very globally competitive. Again, I don't think anyone's talking about the complete supply chain and every piece of equipment being manufactured here in Australia, but we've got some real competitive advantage, and that includes access to some of the critical minerals that are obviously inputs into some key products for the clean energy transition.
Already there are critics piling on. The Productivity Commission's chairwoman Danielle Wood says the Act risks creating a class of businesses that is reliant on government subsidies, and saying that it should come with an exit strategy for the government. Do you think she's right?
Well, I don't think anyone's suggesting that the government should be subsidising the manufacturing of these sorts of products forever, but clearly there is a global arms race on, and doing nothing isn't an option. Australia is being left behind. We will be left behind if Australia doesn't step up. And, what's being announced here by the government is not dissimilar to what we're seeing in dozens, in fact hundreds of countries around the world, including the United States. And so, I think government needs to be careful about how they implement and over what period. But this is exactly what the rest of the world is doing, and there is no doubt in mind that this is what Australia needs, a focused program, focused levels of support for the key components that we're going to need for the future.
The government spends a lot of money on incentives such as the diesel fuel rebate. Now, that's a scheme the likes of BHP and Rio Tinto benefit from. Is that taxpayers' money well spent?
Well, I think very clearly what we're seeing is a shift away from fossil fuels towards clean energy. We're seeing it globally, we're seeing it here in Australia, and clearly we're looking for government to shift where they might have historically been subsidising or incentivising fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, I think it's entirely appropriate that those subsidies wind out and they wind into the things that we want and need and value of the future, like batteries, like solar power, like green hydrogen. That's sensible public policy. It's what's happening around the world, and we think it should continue here in Australia.
Kane, you're about to head over to the US where the Inflation Reduction Act is in place to take a look at some of those measures. What would you like to see that's working there implemented here?
Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act, I think it's fair to say, has changed the world in terms of both the scale of commitment from the United States and also the sophistication of the policies and measures that they've put in place. And, you know, I think what that means for the US is a lot of investment, a lot of technology, a lot of research going to the United States. And what we're wanting to see is Australia really stepping up. And we don't need to match the Inflation Reduction Act. We don't have the same scale or economy. But what we're looking for is some really smart measures from the Australian government that identify those critical opportunities, sectors and technologies, and really have focused support. And that's very much what we've seen from the Prime Minister and the government this week. And we hope and expect to see more of that in the lead up to the upcoming budget. And then, of course, throughout the year as some of the really fine and complex detail gets worked through between government and industry and investors. So I really look forward to understanding more of how that's working in the US, what's working, what's not working, and bringing the best of it back here to Australia.
Kane Thornton, great to have you on the program. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much, Rachel.